Welcome to Concrete Block, the podcast where we dive into the latest news and current events shaping our world. We're starting off with a story that's been making waves in the European Union. It appears that the European Commission has been dealing with some internal conflicts, particularly with regards to the handling of funds allocated for defense spending. The Safety Defense Loan Scheme, which provides funding for EU member states to enhance their military capabilities, has seen some countries hesitant to take up the offered loans. Meanwhile, in other news, the Patriots group in the European Parliament has appointed a new whip, Marieke Eilers, a Dutch MEP from Geert Wilders' Party for Freedom. This development comes as the group, led by Jordan Bardella, continues to assert its influence within the parliament. In addition, there have been reports of a tanker linked to Russia's shadow fleet being intercepted by France and its partners, including the UK. The vessel was allegedly sailing under a false flag and ignoring official orders, prompting an investigation into sanctions, evasion, and violations of maritime law. The European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, has also been meeting with top socialist MEPs, including Irat Garcia, to discuss the social agenda and policy priorities. This meeting marks a rare occasion where the Commission President has invited the group's leadership to talk about politics and policy. Lastly, in a surprising turn of events, the Party for Freedom's Marieke Eilers expressed her excitement to help strengthen the Patriots' influence in Parliament, replacing Anders Vistisen as the group's whip. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. We're diving into the complex world of international relations and finance. Tensions between Israel and Hezbollah have been escalating, with both sides trading fire despite a U.S.-brokered ceasefire in April. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has faced criticism at home for halting plans to attack Hezbollah in Beirut after a call with U.S. President Donald Trump. Netanyahu's challengers in the upcoming election have accused him of losing control of Israeli sovereignty and allowing the U.S. to dictate military policy. Meanwhile, the conflict has resulted in significant displacement and loss of life, with over 1 million people displaced and more than 400 killed since March 2nd. Hezbollah has fired rockets and explosive drones at Israeli troops and northern Israeli towns, while Israel has continued to carry out attacks on southern Lebanon. The situation remains volatile, with Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz warning that any new Hezbollah attacks on northern Israel would trigger strikes on southern Beirut suburbs. In related news, U.S. President Donald Trump has been working to reach a peace deal with Iran, but the conflict in Lebanon could potentially jeopardize those efforts. Trump's push for Israel to halt attacks has been met with criticism from some in Israel, who argue that it undermines their ability to defend themselves. Former Israeli military chief Gadi Eisenkot has said that Trump's demand is unreasonable and humiliating for Israel. In other news, Alphabet has announced plans to raise $80 billion through a package of equity offerings to fund its AI spending plans. This move could have significant implications for the tech industry and the broader economy. We'll be keeping an eye on these developments as they unfold. As we navigate these complex issues, it's essential to consider multiple perspectives and avoid taking sides. The situation in the Middle East is nuanced and multifaceted, and we must approach it with empathy and understanding. Welcome back to Concrete Block. As we wrap up today's show, let's take a look at the ongoing situation in Ukraine and the latest developments in U.S. support for the country. The Russia-Ukraine war has been a major point of discussion globally, with various nations providing aid to Ukraine in its fight against Russian aggression. Recently, a bill known as the Ukraine Support Act is set to be voted on in the U.S. House of Representatives. This act aims to provide significant assistance to Ukraine, including defense aid and the imposition of additional sanctions on Russia. The bill has garnered bipartisan support, with several representatives issuing a joint statement expressing their commitment to helping Ukraine defend its sovereignty. However, not everyone is on board with the proposed legislation. President Trump has expressed concerns about the cost of U.S. aid to Ukraine in the past, and his administration has slowed down assistance to the country. Vice President J.D. Vance has also been critical of U.S. support for Ukraine, stating that it's not in America's interest to continue sending aid. Despite these challenges, supporters of Ukraine remain optimistic that the bill will pass. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has personally appealed to President Trump and members of Congress for additional defense assistance, highlighting the urgent need for anti-ballistic missiles to protect Ukrainian civilians from Russian attacks. The outcome of this vote will have significant implications for the future of the Russia-Ukraine war. If the bill passes, it could provide a much-needed boost to Ukraine's military capabilities and put further pressure on Russia's economy. On the other hand, if the bill fails, it could embolden Russia and potentially lead to further escalation of the conflict. As we conclude this segment, it's essential to acknowledge the complexity of this issue and the diverse perspectives involved. It's crucial for policymakers to carefully consider the potential consequences of their decisions and prioritize a peaceful resolution to the conflict. That's all for today's Concrete Block. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, stay informed.